It was just after dawn on a Monday morning in August 2005. The city of Fortaleza, a coastal jewel in northeastern Brazil, was waking up. Streets hummed with buses, vendors opened their stalls, and workers filed into their offices. Inside the Fortaleza branch of Banco Central, the very heart of Brazil's financial system, employees moved through their usual morning routines. But when they descended into the main vault, something felt wrong. The air was different, still, heavy, and then they saw it. Where stacks of cash once stood neatly piled, there was now an open wound in the concrete floor. A hole, cleanly cut, nearly circular, big enough for a man to crawl through. Around it lay dust, broken rebar, and the faint smell of wet soil. The vault was empty. Gone, 3.5 tons of Brazilian real, worth over 164 million at the time, around $70 million US. There was no alarm, no forced entry, and no sign of guards being alerted during the night. The thieves had vanished, taking with them one of the largest hauls in modern history and leaving behind only a tunnel. It was a crime so big, so meticulously planned, that it stunned the entire world and forever changed how banks thought about security. To understand the magnitude of these things, you need to understand that the Banco Central business. It isn't a regular bank that deals with customers. It manages Brazil's currency, interest rates, and financial policies. The Fortaleza branch was responsible for holding and processing huge amounts of cash, notes that were either newly printed or ready to be removed from circulation. Inside that vault sat mountains of physical money, billions of real in total. Among those stacks were the perfect bills for a heist, old, unnumbered notes that were about to be destroyed. Once they disappeared, they'd be nearly impossible to trace. The vault was considered impregnable, reinforced with concrete and steel, fitted with sensors, alarms, and motion detectors. To break through it by force would have been suicide. But what if you didn't break through it? What if you went under it? In early 2005, an organized criminal group began quietly assembling a team. Not just robbers, but carpenters, engineers, and geologists. Their idea was bold beyond imagination. Dig a tunnel straight into the bank's vault from a nearby house. To do that, they needed a convincing cover, something ordinary that explained long hours, trucks of soil, and constant movement. So they created a fake landscaping company and called it Grama Sintética, synthetic grass. They rented a small single-story house on Rua 25D Março, only 80 meters from the bank. From the outside, it looked completely normal. A sign hung out front. Trucks arrived, workers came and went, neighbors thought nothing of it. Inside, a secret operation was underway. Over the next 3 months, an estimated 30 men worked day and night, digging by hand a narrow tunnel about 80 meters long and nearly 4 meters underground. They reinforced the tunnel with wooden beams and lined it with plastic sheeting to prevent collapse. It had electric lights, a ventilation system made from irrigation pipes, and even small carts to transport soil and, later, the stolen cash. More than 30 tons of dirt were removed, quietly bagged, loaded onto trucks, and dumped elsewhere around the city. No one suspected a thing. By early August, the tunnel had reached the concrete foundation beneath the vault. The crew had come too far to turn back. Now came the most dangerous part. On Friday evening, August 5, 2005, they made their final preparations. The vault above them held hundreds of millions of real. Only a meter of reinforced concrete stood in their way. Using diamond-tipped saws, they began cutting through. Sparks flew in the darkness. The work was slow and nerve-wracking. Any noise could alert security, and one mistake could cause the tunnel to cave in. Sometime that Saturday, they broke through. For the next 2 full days, they worked without rest. They tore open stacks of cash, filled duffel bags, and wheeled them back through the tunnel toward the rented house. By the time they were done, they had stolen over 164 million real, about $70 million in small bills. The money weighed nearly 3.5 tons. By Sunday night, the job was complete. The tunnel was sealed, the cash loaded into vehicles. The men vanished. When employees entered the vault Monday morning, there were no alarms, no forced doors, just silence and that gaping hole. It was a perfect crime. By noon, news of the heist had spread across Brazil. Reporters rushed to the scene. Helicopters circled overhead, and the police sealed off the block. What they found looked unreal. A normal-looking house hiding a tunnel equipped with lights, cables, wood beams, and ventilation. It wasn't a robbery. It was an underground engineering project. The media called it the robbery of the century. Within days, the story reached every major news outlet around the world. Experts were astonished, not just by the theft, but by the level of precision and planning it required. To dig a tunnel that long under one of Fortaleza's busiest districts and breach a central bank vault without triggering any alarms. It sounded like something out of a Hollywood movie, but this was real. The Brazilian Federal Police launched Operation Tentacles. It became one of the largest investigations in the country's history. Investigators began tracing every lead, fingerprints, vehicle registrations, and sudden cash purchases around the city. Within days, they found a man who had bought 11 cars in cash right after the heist. That single lead led to the first arrests. As the investigation unfolded, a clearer picture emerged. The mastermind was believed to be Antônio Paulista Santos, known by his nickname Palermo, a former used car dealer with a criminal past. Under his leadership, the gang brought in engineers, mechanics, and men with prior tunnel experience. A security insider named Ducimar Neves Queiroz had worked for a company contracted by Banco Central and allegedly gave them vital details about the vault's layout and alarm system. Authorities estimated that more than 150 people were involved in total: diggers, transporters, financiers, and launderers. But the biggest challenge was this: the money was gone. The stolen cash consisted of decommissioned bills with no serial numbers, no records, and no tracking. Once they entered circulation, they were untraceable. In the end, police recovered only about 20 to 30% of the total amount. The rest disappeared. Rumors spread quickly. Some claimed the money was smuggled out of Brazil. Others said it was laundered through real estate or casinos. What's certain is that the aftermath turned violent. Within months, several gang members were kidnapped, killed, many in disputes over their shares of the stolen money. One alleged financier, Luis Fernando Ribeiro, nicknamed Fernandinho, was kidnapped by another criminal faction demanding ransom money from the heist. Even after a ransom was paid, he was found dead by a roadside, shot multiple times. The heist that began as a masterpiece of planning had descended into betrayal and bloodshed. For 3 years, the mastermind Palermo managed to stay hidden. He lived under fake identities, moving from city to city, still protected by what remained of his fortune. But in 2008, his luck ran out. Federal police tracked him down in Brasilia and arrested him in a modest apartment. They seized luxury cars and cash. But it was only a tiny fraction of the original take. In total, dozens of people were arrested, tried, and convicted. Some received sentences up to 49 years in prison. Others cooperated with authorities in exchange for reduced time. But many of those involved on the edges of the operation simply vanished. The public was captivated. The heist became a symbol of both Brazil's brilliance and its flaws, the ingenuity of its people, and the weaknesses in its systems. Newspapers compared it to Ocean's 11. Talk shows marveled at the skill it took, but beneath the fascination was outrage. How could a group of criminals tunnel under a major bank for months without anyone noticing? How could the country's central bank be robbed without a single alarm sound? In Fortaleza, the house that hid the tunnel became an eerie attraction. People gathered outside, taking photos, wanting to see the place where $70 million had vanished. Eventually, authorities sealed it off, but not before it had become a part of Brazilian legend. Years later, the story inspired films, books, and even a Netflix documentary titled 3 Toneladas, Assalto ao Banco Central, 3 times. The assault on the Banco Central. It reintroduced the story to millions of new viewers. Yet, nearly 2 decades later, unanswered questions remain. How deep did the operation go? Did they get help from inside? Investigators suspect they did, but no solid proof ever surfaced. Then there's the tunnel itself. Despite being nearly a football field in length and 4 meters deep, no one ever heard a thing. How did they dig under roads and pipelines without detection? Some believe they bribed local officials. Others think it was sheer luck combined with extraordinary skill. And the biggest question of all, where is the missing $50 million? Most of the stolen money has never been recovered. Some say it was buried in the Brazilian countryside. Others whisper that portions of it were used to fund other criminal empires. But to this day, the majority remains lost, swallowed by time and silence. The Banco Central Heist isn't just a story about stolen money. It's a story about human patience, precision, and ambition. These men didn't storm in with guns. They didn't threaten anyone or break down things. They dug, quietly, methodically, beneath an entire city, while the world above them carried on unaware. And maybe that's what makes this crime so haunting. Because it reminds us that the most dangerous threats aren't always loud or violent. Sometimes they move quietly, out of sight, just below the surface. A tunnel under our feet, a false front across the street. For the employees who discovered the hole on Monday morning, their workplace, once a fortress, became a symbol of vulnerability. For Brazil, the heist became a wake-up call that no system, no matter how secure, is ever truly safe. And for the rest of us, it leaves a chilling fact. If thieves could tunnel under one of the most guarded institutions in the world, what else could be happening right now, unseen, beneath our cities? The tunnel may have collapsed, the money may have vanished, and the men behind it may be scattered, imprisoned, or dead. But the echo of that heist still lingers, deep underground, where greed and ambition carved their path through the earth itself. And perhaps, somewhere beneath the streets of Fortaleza, part of that fortune still lies buried, waiting to be found. This is Crimes Unknown, where cold cases refuse to stay buried. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more haunting mysteries. And don't forget to like the video to support real crime stories that deserve to be heard. Drop your theories in the comments.